Good Tuesday evening to you. Hope you're having a great evening. Welcome to More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine, talking plenty of Browns tonight. Cleveland.com columnists Doug Lesmerises and Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report a little bit later are the guests scheduled for tonight. Let's begin by getting right into it. The Chiefs ended the Browns season by 5 points with Chad Henne, backup quarterback, in the game for most of the second half. Let's welcome in Cleveland.com columnist Doug Lesmerises. Also, you can read him in the pages of the Plain Dealer. Doug, my perception is this was a missed opportunity. Browns had a great season, exceeded expectations, but when you have a backup quarterback in the game, you have the ball with 8 minutes left, down less than a touchdown, the game was there to win.
Yeah, I push back on that pretty hard, and I've been arguing with people about it since the game ended. I think the Browns maxed out, and I think the idea of a missed opportunity discounts the fact that they did everything they could with who they are to get to that point. And I think if the expectation is like, well, the Chiefs didn't play a perfect game and their guy got hurt, all the Browns had to do was play a perfect game and they could have won. In the second half, they open with the Baker Mayfield interception, which is clearly a guy trying to make a play with his team down. They respond with touchdown drive to put themselves in the position they were in. And then if the solution is, well, why didn't they just string together a third straight touchdown drive in the second half against the defending Super Bowl champions? I'm saying they maxed out to bounce back with the 2 touchdown drives to get into that spot. And they also got lucky that Mahomes got hurt and Henne threw a terrible pick. And then when the Chiefs, get the ball back at the end and get the first downs they need to get, that's against a Browns defense that's had flaws the whole year. I've worked out, Dave, the exact analogy in my mind. I'll do it in 20 seconds. Usain Bolt runs a 9.58 100-meter dash. So he's the world record holder. Let's say he's running in the 9.7s lately, though. He's not quite running as fast as you run a 9.9. Now you race Usain Bolt. He runs a 9.58 at his best. If he runs a 9.82 and your personal best is a 9.9 and you run a 9.86, and the idea is, man, you missed an opportunity to beat Usain Bolt. It's like, listen, man, I didn't miss an opportunity. Usain Bolt ran slower than he usually does. I ran as fast as I possibly could without my legs falling off, and it still wasn't enough. That's, to me, what the story of this is, far more than missed opportunity.
I would disagree because I don't think the Browns ran the ball as effectively as they normally did. I mean, if you look, especially in the first half, there was not, Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt didn't touch the ball, but they weren't getting past a Chiefs run defense that's not great. I mean, the Chiefs defense played probably better than expected, and I think the Browns offense didn't play as well as expected. I think if you say 17 is the most points the Browns are going to score against the Chiefs defense, I disagree. That's not a good Chiefs defense, and the offense just didn't play very well.
They had 3 possessions in the first half. They marched down, didn't quite get in the end zone, got a field goal. They punted once. And then they had the Higgins touchdown that should have been, that wasn't quite a touchdown, right? The fumble. They had 3 drives in the first half. The strategy was to slow the game down, have long drives, don't get in a track meet. And then they do that, and then people view that as like the offense not being effective. So, it's not like they didn't punt a million times. The Chiefs did not punt at all. The Browns defense did a great job to hold them to field goals. They never forced a punt. But it's not like the Browns were going out there possession after possession and doing nothing. They only had 3. They had 3 drives in the first half. The second half, they have 4. And they go turnover, touchdown, and then the last drive. I mean, that's pretty efficient, I'd say.
Still, they gave up the field goal at the end of the half after the fumble through that. And the defense, the disappointing thing from the defensive side of the ball is the Chiefs were able to run the ball much more effectively than I thought they would be able to. They don't run the ball well. They didn't have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they didn't play Bell. They played Williams. So their third running back was running through the defense. And I know you're going to say it's in part because they were worried about Mahomes and the passing game. I know where you're going, but you got to stop one of them. You can't let them run and throw.
So what's the complaint? The complaint is that, are we complaining that the defense didn't play well enough while holding the Chiefs to 22? Or are we complaining that the offense didn't do enough while slowing the game down, limiting drives, and scoring 17 points? They played two deep safeties. They didn't let anything go over their head the whole game. They gave up stuff. Are we new to the Browns linebackers? Is this a new revelation that people ran on them a little bit? I mean, of course, they only lost by 5 and they had the ball at the end with a chance to drive. I'm saying they had to do so much to get to that point. And they didn't have everything go right, but also the idea of, listen, well, if Baker doesn't throw a pick, well, it's not coincidental. This guy has learned to take care of the ball, but he throws a pick when he's pressing against the defending Super Bowl champs. That's to be expected. If Rashard Higgins doesn't reach the ball, well, listen, Kevin Stefanski says they have that rule. Stefanski's only been here 1 year. Higgins is a guy who couldn't even get on the field beginning of the year when guys were healthy. This is not a veteran with a veteran coach steeped in a system. A guy tried to make a play for a first-year coach, didn't have his head on straight necessarily, is trying something and does it. I'm saying what the Browns are, which is.
Yeah, and obviously we'll get back to Doug with that thought, what the Browns are. My point would be the Browns team that came out and played against the Chiefs didn't look anything at all like the Browns team that played a week earlier against the Steelers. Now, I know you get out to a big lead, and that's the case, but there were a number of things that the Browns just didn't do well enough, and I think from that aspect, I get where Doug's going, but from that aspect, the Browns just it was a missed opportunity. That game was there to be won, and it was just a missed opportunity. So the other thing that this brings up is, Wyatt Teller had an outstanding season, one of the top guards in the NFL, and that was a guy that was a question mark. Who was going to play right guard for the Browns? It ended up being Wyatt Teller. He was banged up, but Wyatt Teller feels this offensive line, which, by the way, should come back intact, should enjoy a huge season with another year together in total.
Year in the system to do what we did, to have the performances we had on the offensive line, like I said, is a good thing. And while it sucks, to go out the way we did, like I said, it shows a lot of promise, and I'm looking forward to it, to the off season, to getting stronger, to taking the similar steps that I took last year to replicate the success, and then get back. I mean, like the guy said, like we will be back, and I think I truly believe that. I believe in the guys on the team, and I believe in the guys leading us. And if we all buy in like we did this year, I mean, it's hard to say that it can't happen again, right? So, but it's hard. I mean, we all know it's hard to replicate success. So I know there's going to be a target on our back, but I'm looking forward to it, to working next year, and trying to get that next step and keep on moving forward.
Wyatt Teller talking about the continuity on the offensive line. Let's bring back in Doug Lesmerises. I yield to Doug. Doug, what do you think about that? Second year for the offensive line. We'll get back to your point where we got cut off a little bit, but what do you think about the offensive line? Second year in the system. You would think, just like Baker Mayfield, there's a growth from a familiarity, and especially with Bill Callahan.
I mean, on one hand, I'm not even sure what you could ask of them more, right? It's like how could they play better, but they will play better. I mean, especially Jedrick Wills as a rookie to play like he did. It's maybe the most amazing part of this team. Think about how this offensive line came together. The biggest issue with the offensive line, was guys missing time, which injury is a part of the game, but COVID stuff was a little bit extra. But, Wyatt Teller, I think, missed 5 games. They all, I think everybody except J.C. Treader missed at least one game along the way. But I don't think there's an offensive line in the league that played at the level of the Browns and will bring all 5 guys back. They're all relatively young still. There's nobody of those 5 that you would expect to be hitting like the downside of their career, I mean, yeah, all of the good and even better, yes.
All right, let's get back to the point we were making with the Browns, and my thought process is I didn't think the Browns played as well as they could on either side of the ball against Kansas City. I don't think they played a perfect game by any stretch. I don't think they played well. And I'm, you mentioned the interception. I don't hold that against Baker Mayfield. I think you're right. He's trying to force it in and make a play. He realizes at that point the Browns need points. And he admitted, late over the middle, bad place to throw in an NFL situation. But go ahead and further illustrate what your point was about, the Browns kind of maxing out where they were.
So, 7 offensive possessions, 2 touchdowns, a field goal, the fumble at the half-yard line, and 2 punts. And then, yeah, I think that's right. Maybe, yeah, 7 offensive possessions, whatever the math is. It's not like they got stopped consistently. That's the thing. But also, it's also not coincidental that maybe they didn't play their best against the defending Super Bowl champs, because in the end, as we saw, yes, is down to down, is Kansas City a top 5 defense? No. That last drive when the Browns needed it, Chris Jones, who's an all-pro, blew up 2 plays and practically shut down that last drive on his own. He beat Wyatt Teller with inside pressure on one of the plays that absolutely devastated that play. That's not coincidental. You have your best guy against their best guy, and their best guy won when it mattered. So that's how good they are. And, I don't know. They did a lot to keep Kansas City from going crazy. But on the other hand, this Browns defense is limited. We know their flaws. And the Chiefs come out and go touchdown to open the game. And it feels like it could get away from them. Could absolutely get away from them. And the Browns hung around. And then they got the ultimate break in Mahomes going out. But it wasn't like, they won. I think Mahomes went out. The Chiefs were up by 9. So the Browns sort of won the battle after Mahomes went out. But the Chiefs still had a lead. And so that's just not where I am. I understand the points people make. The facts of the matter are they got the ball back with 8 minutes to play, down 5, and they had just come off an 8-minute drive. All they had to do was replicate an 18-play, 8-minute drive, and they would have beaten the Chiefs. But if your point is, well, why didn't they do that again? My point is, how did they do an 18-play, 8-minute drive to begin with the first time around? That's miraculous to me in that situation to do that. So I'm not going to go to, well, why didn't they do it again? The odds are they wouldn't do that at all. So the fact that they did it once when they needed it, I think is more than you would expect. And I'm not going to say, well, why didn't they do it twice?
Well, I wasn't expecting an 8-minute drive, but a drive to score would have been nice. And they've certainly shown that they can do that.
You just talked about how they couldn't run the ball all day.
Yeah, and against a Kansas City Chiefs thing. And again, maybe we're not giving enough credit to how banged up guys were. Conklin's playing with a hamstring. Bitonio's coming off COVID. You had Jedrick Wills out of there. So right there, you've got 2 guys basically at 100%. Maybe that's something to do with it. And you can certainly say Myles Garrett that we saw the last half of the year was not the Myles Garrett that we saw earlier in the year.
Totally agree. Sounds like not a missed opportunity. They're
It's
playing
still
their 4th-string left tackle. Not only are they not playing Wills at the end, Hubbard is the next guy. He's out. Lamb's the next guy. He goes out. They're literally playing a guy off the street at left tackle in an AFC playoff game. And as you said, now listen, Myles, when Baker threw the pick and they held him to no points because the Chiefs missed the field goal, Myles made a huge play on that drive. He got pressure on Mahomes to make a huge play. He didn't do that really much else of the rest of the game. I don't think Myles was himself. Denzel Ward, invaluable to have him back. He's leaving with cramp.
Yep.
He left that cramp because he's still recovering from COVID. You're trying to stop Patrick Mahomes, and your 3 corners on the field are Terrence Mitchell, Kevin Johnson, and MJ Stewart.
Okay.
And you hung in.
But still, but here's the thing. Chad Henne shouldn't run for 13 yards on a football field with 11 professional football players trying to stop him. That can't happen. That just can't happen. Can't happen.
No, I agree, which is why I thought the punt in that situation made sense. Right?
I agree wholeheartedly. I don't question that at all. I thought that was absolutely the right call.
And they sort of did defensively what they kind of wanted to do. They forced him into 2 third downs. That was the second third down. But again, yes, they shouldn't, but show me the playmaker on the back end who's going to come up. Show me the Tyrann Mathieu who's going to come up and make that play on Chad Henne. They don't have it. Grant Delpit maybe stops him. He's not there. Denzel Ward at 100% maybe stops him. He's not there. They don't have a linebacker who's going to make a play in space right there. They're so worried about the Chiefs making a throw down the field. They're tracking all those receivers in those routes, and they're not paying attention to Chad Henne. So, yes, it shouldn't happen. But the reasons it did happen, we can all see what they are. And there are reasons that it's why the Chiefs are the Chiefs and the Browns aren't quite there yet. So, I mean, I agree, yes. But as much as Chad Henne shouldn't do that, it's the pressure the Chiefs put on you, and it's the fact that the Browns are no more than an average defense that leads to that. And even though it's Chad Henne and he's 35 years old and he's a backup quarterback, you can't be shocked totally in the moment that the Browns defense didn't come up with a huge play, because they really haven't been that defense all year.
Doug Lesmerises, columnist from cleveland.com, as well as the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll continue to talk Browns and Chiefs. So talk a little bit about the growth of Baker Mayfield this season. More sports and Les Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315.
Now more than ever, you need a post-secondary education. So I encourage you to start your journey here at Tri-C. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. More sports, and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. Well, Baker Mayfield's growth in year two, actually in year one under Kevin Stefanski, year three of his career, pretty much has impressed everybody. Even the Baker detractors impressed with the way he has been taking care of the ball and developed as his first year under Kevin Stefanski unfolded. Teammates have always thought highly of him, and this year, they've really seen a different Baker Mayfield.
Just, as a leader, man, he really did a great job of just stepping up and making big plays when we really needed him to, and just leading the team and, firing the guys up. And, Baker's a great quarterback, and, I'm excited to see, what else he got in store in there.
You feel like he really established himself as the guy for the long term here?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, Bake's a heck of a player. I mean, he definitely is a part of this great season.
Kareem Hunt on quarterback, Baker Mayfield. Let's bring back in Doug Lesmerises, columnist for the Plain Dealer, as well as here on cleveland.com. And Doug, you were a guy that way back when said not a huge year for Baker. He was going to get the fifth year either way. I think he eliminated all questions about that. What did you see? How impressed were you with Baker Mayfield this year?
I thought it was a lot of normal growth, and I thought it was a lot of normal growth in a new system. And that like I said, so he was better. He had a better second half than he did a first half, right? Well, it's not like there was any chance of that flipping. Like, it wasn't like Baker Mayfield was going to come out and have an awesome first half of the year and then get worse in the second half. This was always going to be a crescendo in year one of this system, especially in a weird year, right, where they didn't get the hands-on time they normally get. So I think every part of this made sense. That as much as year two kind of didn't make sense for him, considering how good he was as a rookie, there also have been lots of quarterbacks who've struggled in year two. And I was right in that last year. That go back and look at Brett Favre in year two, or other guys who turned out to be really good quarterbacks who hit a little bit of a rough patch after their rookie year as the league adjusts to them and they adjust to the league. The tough thing is, like, for instance, Josh Allen in Buffalo has had an abnormal growth pattern because that guy exploded. That guy went like pretty good, a little inconsistent to like MVP caliber. So if you think of it like that, then it's like Baker's not quite that. But in normal quarterback progress, all of this made sense, and it will continue to go up next year because there's a lot more out there for him. But this is what I would have expected from him this year.
The other thing is this is the first time that he will have a second year in a system, and that for a quarterback, that's huge. You don't have to. It's all reaction. You can get deeper into the backside of plays, and I would expect he has the arm strength to take advantage of those things.
The only thing, the main thing I think that worried people with Baker is one's like, okay, decision making, right? That's kind of the main thing. Like when he's throwing some of these picks, and it's like he's not seeing guys, and then sometimes he's not throwing it when he should. Is he seeing ghosts? That's a primary thing. But then he got drafted where he got drafted because he was accurate. And so then he wasn't as accurate at times. Those things, remember, he misses a wide open guy in the end zone, or he's throwing behind somebody a little bit, giving him a chance to get picked off. And that's gone. And I think it's a function of, okay, well, now that he's comfortable, all his mechanics are straightened out. He's accurate. He's really accurate. And so that gets you back to, this is the guy that got drafted overall number one. He can move around a little bit, but he knows what he's seeing, and he rips throws accurately in the moment, and then he takes on that mantle of being the guy. So, a guy like Josh Allen does have more upside. But the thing with Allen, when the Browns are making that choice, is he's more boom or bust. He's booming. He is booming right now. Baker was a bit of a safer pick, but Baker right now is showing you everything he can be, and there's still more out there. But this is the guy they drafted.
All right, now another quarterback they drafted, and this one a little bit like a car wreck. You don't want to look, but you kind of got to look. Johnny Manziel, after the Browns game, takes to social media and tweets, and let's take a look at the first one. Yeah, so there's Johnny. Little smirk, half-eaten grin, and then we look, and that wasn't it. Johnny Manziel, thank you, Jimmy Haslam. Not exactly sure what that is. And then there's one more. I'm not even mad, I'm petty. So, again, let's bring Doug back in. Doug, it's like a car wreck. I probably shouldn't look at it, but I want to turn back around and look at it because I'm still intrigued.
So I'd say this. I think in the past with Johnny Manziel, it was a wreck, and the Browns were stuck in traffic, and you were like staring at the wreck. You were going past it at 1 mile per hour, and you saw every part of it because you didn't have anything going on. It's like, well, traffic's not moving. I may as well stare at this wreck forever. Now, the wreck is there, but traffic is flowing. You're on the highway. So the Browns are going 65. And it's like, oh, is there a little Vegas quarterback over there who said something? But you're zooming past, brother. You don't have to sit in traffic and stare at it. That guy wrecked. I don't know what he did. He hit a bunny rabbit on his motorcycle, and he flipped over the guardrail, and he's standing over there talking to the cop in spandex shorts, with a Hawaiian tank top on. But we're gone, baby. So good luck, Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. Don't wear the disguise to Vegas next time. That's the advice. Let's talk a little bit about the defense. Obviously limited. The intriguing thing is if they just get the pieces back that they lost this year. Andrew Billings opted out. Could have used a defensive tackle that stops the run. Grant Delpit, the guy they were going to put in the box, injured all year. Greedy Williams, injured all year. Those are things that they dealt with from the beginning of the season, really, that we might have kind of glossed over and overlooked because everybody was dealing with COVID. So the defense still needs a lot of attention, but there's some pieces there that at least appear to address what they need.
Yeah, so they got to get better at linebacker. The linebackers aren't good. You can't bring back just the same guys. But, I was on this show all summer saying, okay, yeah, fine. They're not good at linebacker. They're good everywhere else. This was last on the pecking order. And so here we are, honestly, it's like, for real. The number of times I said, I don't care that they're bad at linebacker. You're not great everywhere.
Now you care.
3rd and 14 in the AFC playoffs against 35-year-old Chad Henne. That's when it caught up to you. It did not catch up to you before then.
Yeah.
So, okay, now you address that. But we knew that. Offense came first last offseason. We all knew this was going to be the defense's offseason. Boy, Tyrann Mathieu, the way he plays, it just makes you long for a playmaking safety. And maybe Grant Delpit is that. I don't know that you can count on anything from Greedy Williams. I would assume, if I were the Browns, I would go forward assuming you're not going to have Greedy Williams. I would go forward assuming, fingers crossed, that you're going to have Grant Delpit. So they could use some help at linebacker. BJ Goodson is okay. A lot of the other pieces, I don't know that Mac Williams, there's just moments in that game. Sione Takitaki misses a tackle on the sideline early in that game. That is a killer, an absolute killer tackle, and it wasn't out of nowhere, right? It's like, I don't know that guy's good enough. Mac Wilson had a lot of times this season where he wasn't really on the field. I don't know that guy's good enough. Jacob Phillips is still a maybe, but they need to address linebacker with at least one guy. And then I think I don't know that you can bank only on Delpit, but Delpit and Harrison at safety might be pretty good. But, they've had some pieces, but yes, this is the second step. You just can't do everything at once. And I thought addressing tackle, addressing tight end, that was much more important in the offseason, and they did that very well. If they fix the defense as well as they fixed the offense last offseason, if you add to this defense the equivalent of Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin, and Austin Hooper, oh boy, they're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. The other thing, let's get into just what Andrew Berry did, and the other thing to address would also be, the role Paul DePodesta played. A lot of the media kind of sloughed off DePodesta. He was working remotely, but it came out pretty clear he was the guy that kind of pounded on the desk for Kevin Stefanski, wanted him the year before when he got Freddie Kitchens. And anybody that's being honest has to admit Paul DePodesta was right in this instance.
Yeah, Paul DePodesta is not a guy who's going to make football decisions, but he's going to make organizational decisions that you hire the right people and put the right structures in place. And I think, it goes back to what everybody said at the time of Kevin Stefanski's hiring, and then Andrew Berry shortly thereafter. They're finally aligned, but it's an organizational philosophy. It's the right people executing that philosophy, and then Paul DePodesta can let the right people do their job. So, I think he probably was right all along. The Haslams listened to him intermittently along the way. Finally, in the end, I think they listened wholeheartedly, and here we are. And there are lots of other people who contributed along the way to this. It was a winding road, but Sashi Brown and John Dorsey certainly contributed in their way to what the Browns are right now. But the main thing now is that This is what it looks like when something starts. I mean, this is it. I mean, I don't like Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield are together here for the next 10 years. And so is Andrew Berry. Nobody's going anywhere. They're going to keep winning. They've got the right people, around them. Things will change, but otherwise, like, the core is here. It's a winning core, and get ready for the next decade of this.
Last thing I'll ask you before I let you go, and I think I know the answer to this. Overall, sum up your feelings about what the Browns did this year, and kind of, you touched on it. It's a first step towards building what they expect to be, which is contenders year in and year out.
I think in the end, last year was the step. We just didn't realize it, right? Because it got disguised with the bad record, but that was gathering talent, getting some things in place. This was it all coming together. I think if they play somebody other than the defending Super Bowl champs in round 2, they might have won 2 playoff games this year. The standard has been raised. I think we all start viewing the Browns differently. I'm not doing it yet, which is why I'm not doing missed opportunity and stuff. I think they maxed out this year. Given everything that happened, they had the best year they could have. Next year, you start saying things like, if they don't win 2 playoff games, I'm a little disappointed. You start holding them to a standard that this franchise hasn't been held to since the 80s. And that is a wonderful thing. We are heading to a Browns future based off this year where they're going to lose good players to free agency because they can't afford everybody, where they make the playoffs and lose in the first round and people are mad. That's what your future is. But that also means there's probably a Super Bowl appearance in that future, maybe a Super Bowl win. They are officially now a normal winning franchise. That's what this year established, and that makes it one of the most important seasons in Browns history.
Without question, and I think the Browns would agree, that they want to be held to that higher standard. That's what good franchises want. Doug Lesmerises, columnist for The Plain Dealer, as well as here on cleveland.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Doug.
Thanks, Dave.
Time for us to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will bring in Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report, talk a little bit of X's and O's with the Cleveland Browns. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
A friend of mine brought up Nature Stone.
Our floor was not a nice garage floor. It was cracked and dirty and messy all the time, and now it's just pretty. It's a pretty garage floor.
You could tell they really cared about what they were doing. They did an excellent job.
There's a room of lovely people here that have been so nice to us and so great, and such great service from the guys who did the floor, and we just really appreciate that.
And I highly recommend it.
Schedule your free cost estimate today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine. Let's welcome in Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report. You can read him in the Orange and Brown Report. Great read, one of the better X's and O guys in the local area. And Jake, I'm interested in your take. I know you watch the All-22. You go back and look at a bunch of things. Just a reaction to that game against Kansas City.
Well, I thought Kansas City had a really good game plan, and I thought they really stressed Cleveland's run game in a way that they weren't prepared for. They took away a lot of the lateral run game stuff that Cleveland's really effective with in the first half and forced them into some situations that they had to throw. And not that Cleveland can't throw. Obviously, Baker's had a really nice last half of the season throwing the football and really great close to the year with it. But it did take Cleveland a little bit out of that rush game element that they so desperately want, right? They want to be able to get up early, control the clock, and kind of use Nick and Kareem to pound out the rest of the game. And Kansas City was really stout along the edges. They were bringing Tyrann Mathieu down to play the box. So they were bringing him from a deep safety down quite often, one of their better, flashier defenders who can beat people at the point of attack, having him cause havoc in the run game laterally. And I really went back and looked at that Vikings-Chiefs game in 2019 because that was the only barometer we had for Kevin Stefanski against the Steve Spagnuolo defense. And they did a lot of the same stuff there. So Cleveland did a nice job of adjusting. They ran the ball from the gun really well in the second half, power counter stuff, pulling a tight end and a guard to the point of attack that resulted in, I think they had over 70 rushing yards in the third quarter alone. And that's what you want. You want your team to be able to adjust at halftime. It's just, you go down 19-3 and there's only so many possessions in the second half, and that puts your offense at their back up against the wall. So they get that thing with 8 minutes left and unfortunately put themselves in a long third down situation where Chris Jones gets pressure. But they thought, at this point, there's a little over 4 minutes left. They could get the football back from Chad Henne, but just the third down scramble didn't break their way. And then the fourth down play we all remember all too well, and that's a wrap. You only get so many possessions in the NFL. You only get around 10 of those things a game. So you got to maximize every single one of them. And unfortunately, the margin for error for the Browns when they get into 1st and 20 or 2nd and 15, 16, 17 is not as great as we would like it to be right now. So the ultimate goal, though, is to get to, where your offense is able to handle some of those situations like we saw from Kansas City. Whenever Kansas City's in 2nd and long, 2nd 20, 1st and 20, you have no doubt that they'll have a way to figure it out because they have so many explosive playmakers on the outside. So that's the end goal for Cleveland. So I was proud of them. They fought really hard. I thought they put everything they had out there, and they were within a touchdown of going to the AFC Championship. So a lot to be proud of. But I certainly think there was an element where Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo have been there before. And Kevin Stefanski and Joe Woods are guys who have not. And they learned a lot. Hopefully there were valuable lessons to be learned in approach and technique. I think this game, although hurtful for the moment, crushed at the moment, could pay dividends down the road.
You mentioned bringing Mathieu down in the box. Do you think if you have somebody like Odell Beckham Jr. on the outside, that might cause Kansas City to think twice about doing something like that? A speed guy on the outside who, by all accounts, Browns were thinking he would be there at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hot topic conversation right now is Odell Beckham and where they go as an offense. So a lot of what I equate to the Browns offense right now is that they're playing with essentially defense is kind of playing red zone defense, where the back end of the end zone is kind of their favor, working in their favor, and everything condenses. Well, the Browns have two guys I consider pretty good receivers, Rashard Higgins and Jarvis Landry, playing Sunday. And while I don't think those guys are world beaters, I think they play really well within the confines of this offense. But the problem is they're not fast guys. They're 4.65 40 guys, which are not quick twitch guys. So think about Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, even Demarcus Robinson to an extent. And when the Chiefs are really healthy, Sammy Watkins. Those are guys who can really run. And they stress the defense laterally, all 53 and a third across the field and all, every inch of the football field 100 yards vertically. And that puts a real bind on your defense. And the Browns didn't have that. So a lot of defenses will condense their look. They'll play low holes coverage in terms of not worrying about being beat over the top, trust their cornerbacks on islands. And that allows teams to play closer to the line of scrimmage and condense the intermediate and short areas. Because you want Jarvis Landry, you want Austin Hooper, you want Rashard Higgins to an extent to win those short and intermediate routes. But when everything is condensed and more defenders are in those areas, it's more challenging for them. And Baker Mayfield has to be perfectly accurate because he's throwing into windows where there are 4 or 5 guys sometimes surrounding the football. So if you get a chance, like I know that this game was hurtful, to go back and watch in the difficulty at which the throws Baker Mayfield was making and the throws at which Chad Henne and to a larger extent Patrick Mahomes were making. A lot of guys wide open for them. Just because the defense has to defend so much of the field, it opens up throwing windows and it opens up separation opportunities. So Odell would help, obviously. I mean, if he's right, if he's healthy, and he's an active, well-playing participant part of this offense, he would help. He's a fast guy. He's a quick twitch guy. but they have to find chemistry there. He's the only guy I've ever seen Baker Mayfield not have chemistry with. So can that chemistry be developed in this offense over time as they get more time to work together and gel? Yeah, perhaps. And I think we'll get a chance to see that, but we still don't know. I still think they should entertain the idea of bringing in somebody fast who they can trust down the field. Names that would think like Bashad Perriman would be one who they used to have, or draft somebody, and they have an extra 3rd round pick, an extra 4th. So they need to invest in somebody who, as they put that receiver on the field, it puts defenses in a bind to cover a lot of territory. So I think Odell, to answer your question, he would have helped. There would have been extra attention on him. But there's the element of how Baker finds Odell and plays with Odell that we still really have to see. From week seven on, and that week 7 game was the Bengals. And for some reason, after Odell left with the knee injury, Baker throws that interception. From that point forward, in terms of in-rhythm throws, according to Pro Football Focus, Baker Mayfield had a 95 grade the rest of the year, which is astounding and probably only behind Aaron Rodgers. So there's something going on there. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it clicked at that point, but the facts are kind of the facts. So we'll see what Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski want to do. I think Kevin Stefanski's note about texting with Odell the other day was very important for the future of him with this team. None of those little comments can be taken in with a grain of salt. I think that they want him back. So I'll be very fascinated to see how they find a role that really accentuates what he does well, because they need guys who threaten on the outside to use the entire football field. Because when that happens, it's like a basketball team that only has mid-range shooters. You need guys that stretch the defense. You need 3-point shooters, and that's what they need to add on the outside, because when you do, that is lighter boxes for the running game, less defenders inside the tackle box, that's safeties playing deeper, that's intermediate areas of the field open, and that gives your tight ends more room to operate in the middle of the field as well. And we saw how David Njoku came on and what Austin Hooper was doing by the end of the year too. So just a level of this offense that they can unlock that was already pretty good that could go to a completely different level.
What about the defense? Is that a similar thing? They need more speed. I mean, you saw the 3rd and 14. Chad Henne isn't a guy like Patrick Mahomes that's an elite athlete. Is it fair to say that defense needs speed at the 2nd and 3rd levels of it?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the game; they had 3 2nd and 14 or more, 1 2nd and 19, and 1 3rd and ridiculously long that they converted. That's the difference. If you can't get teams off the field when they're in 2nd and 14 situations, you're not going to win many games in the NFL level. And that's why, the Chiefs offense is so deadly, because they can make up yards. That's why the Bills are in the AFC Championship, because they can make up those long yardage situations. It's what we call the margin for error. The margin for error for the Browns offense is relatively small. They get behind the sticks. They get behind a situation. You won't see them convert many of them. The Browns only converted 1 2nd and long into a first down between 2nd and 3rd down. They threw a ball up the right seam on a 2nd and 26 to David Njoku that he caught, if you recall, at the right seam. He jumped up, made a play on it. That's the only one. That's just telling you the Chiefs have always found ways to overcome their mistakes, because they have guys who can get chunk plays at any given time. That's what the Browns have to figure out how to get. Defensively, yeah, they have to add speed. I think they have a good enough linebacker group, and if Jacob Phillips comes along and maybe they add what I call a rover position player who can be a box safety linebacker hybrid type. There's some guys out there of particular intrigue that we will talk about as we get closer to the draft, but they need that player who can play in the box and play physical, be a linebacker type, but also be a guy who can cover in the slot and who can cover tight ends and play an effective curl flat defense and kind of in the intermediate areas. They need more consistency at safety. Ronnie Harrison's a nice part. I think Carl Joseph had some moments, but they need another good safety. Is Grant Delpit going to come back and be that guy? He's dealing with an Achilles injury. When you rupture those things, it's a long process. Keanu Neal in Atlanta is a great safety. It took him 2 years, according to his own impression of how long it took him to feel normal again. I hope Grant gets back this year, but you just never know how the body's going to react to it. So they need to add a safety, in my opinion, whether they draft one or sign one, maybe a Justin Simmons out of Denver if he hits the market, a really good player. And they have to add speed, depth at corner. They need more guys there. They have to go out and get a guy. They have to go out and draft a guy. I don't know what the status of Greedy Williams will be moving forward. There's some questions about that shoulder nerve issue. We don't really know. And they need as many defensive backs to play against the Chiefs, wide receiver depth, and they need as many defensive backs to play against the Bills and the Steelers. Even though Ben is what he is at this point, they still have 4 very good wide receivers. So if you're looking at teams, the Ravens have speed in the perimeter. You got to really match up with who, the Browns have to look at it as we're one of the 5 best teams in the AFC. How do we continue to do that, and how do we get over the hump? Find ways to beat KC, find ways to beat Buffalo, find ways to continue to push for your division championship, beating Pittsburgh and Baltimore. How are you going to do that? You got to have multifaceted defensive backs who can play the run, who can play the pass, who can play with speed, and you got to add to that defensive line and create pressure with just your front 4. So the playoffs, you look at Myles Garrett and some of these guys, and it's why aren't they getting home? Well, they didn't cover long enough for anybody up front to get home. So there's that element too. Got to cover for long enough to allow those guys up front to get home. So it'll be fascinating to see how they add. They'll get Andrew Billings back off of the COVID list, and they'll obviously have to add somebody to take over for Olivier Vernon, as that situation with his Achilles injury is so unfortunate. So they'll have to draft or sign somebody at that spot. So a ton of assets will go to the defensive side of the football without a doubt.
Jake Burns, you can read him in the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Jake and I will continue to talk Browns as we look forward and still look back a little bit. More sports and less Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
We're living in uncertain times, but you don't have to put your future on hold. At Tri-C, you can move ahead while staying safe and saving money. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your 4-year plans have changed, check out Tri-C's programs and resources, because Tri-C is where futures begin.
Well, hello everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get texts sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week. And it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at SmileyOne.com.
More sports and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine. Let's bring back in Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report. Jake, what about the job Kevin Stefanski did? I mean, I don't have a vote, but if I did, I'd have a hard time not voting for Kevin Stefanski as Coach of the Year.
I'm sure I will echo a lot of folks that you asked this question to in Cleveland, that it could not have been more impressive to take over a team with as much baggage as Cleveland has and the franchise has, especially with recent head coaching hires and 20 years of playoff lapses. And it's just that alone in a normal year is enough to make this job difficult. To take what Freddie Kitchens kind of left behind and sculpt it into something pretty fantastic and almost borderline magical, to take this team to 11 wins for the first time since 94 and make the playoffs and win a playoff game for the first time since 94. Like, I don't know if there's enough words to put into play for what he was able to overcome with so much, like I said, historical baggage and so many things at the beginning of the year. And I know everybody was dealing with them, but there were not many new head coaches dealing with a new GM, a new thought process, a new building, essentially, head coach all the way down to the personnel assistants, all of them new, in not even meeting some of his players until 2 weeks before the season. And listen, like I said, I know it was hard for everybody, but there's no doubt if you look at the historical nature of this year and the job that he was able to do as the only head coach new to his position to do what he did, especially make the playoffs and then win a playoff game, snap that playoff issue, and almost, I get Patrick Mahomes is out, but they had him on the brink of going to the AFC Championship. It's just really impressive. He's a really and seemingly impressive human in every aspect. His leadership, his personable approach, his practical and even-keeled nature, just a pragmatic guy who you really can get behind. And it's just, I think there's this misconception that all coaches are great at the NFL level. Well, that's not the case. I've seen some situations where, personality traits derail guys and too much bravado and too much hubris, that it just doesn't work for any number of reasons. It just doesn't work. And it's not always, it's not always a job that you see people hold on to for a long time. Maybe there's 10 coaches in the NFL that last a 5-year period. It's a high turnover profession for a reason. And you hope you can find the right people at the right time who have the right mannerisms, the right belief system, the right approach, the right leadership traits to lead not only your players, but to lead your organization from a coaching standpoint, from a front office standpoint. And you just feel great about that. And you really feel great about how Kevin managed to work every angle of this season as a first-year head coach. And nothing's guaranteed. We know that. We know that in any given season, things could fall apart, but you have no reason to believe that with the level of leadership Andrew Berry provides and the level of leadership that Kevin Stefanski provide and the way those two work in lockstep, that there won't be a really bright future for this organization. And I just can't. I wrote about it a couple different times throughout the year. You just can't say enough about Kevin's job and how well he led this team through so much adversity.
Yeah, I mean, you give the first-year head coach, and it's COVID, so absolutely. Let's take a look at some of the key free agents, and as we look at the free agents the Browns have specifically, who on this list do you think, really want to have back? You mentioned Vernon is banged up. Who on this, really need to re-sign type of guys, just in your opinion?
Re-sign, like guys that I would definitely re-sign in this group. Rashard Higgins, I think he's proven enough from a positional value perspective, what he does at wide receiver and the connection he's built with Baker Mayfield. I would bring back Rashard at all costs. Another guy at all costs that I would bring back, there's probably 4 there. B.J. Goodson I would bring back for sure. I thought he was a great Mike linebacker at a cheap price at a position that they're never going to pay a ton of money to people. I thought he was good enough this year and beyond good enough. He was a top 10 green dot linebacker. By green dot, I mean your guys on defense who communicate with the sideline. It's about 23 of those linebackers in the NFL who play about 800 or more snaps in a season, and BJ was one of the top 10 in that group. So I would bring him back. I would bring Kadero Hodge back because he's going to be cheap. He's a restricted free agent. You can get him back. He's a nice value in special teams, proven really good depth wide receiver. And I'd bring back Cody Parkey. I have no reason to not bring back Cody Parkey. He missed a couple kicks here and there, but a guy who was really consistent for the most part of the season. And you never want to have questions at kicker and kicking competitions. And I think Cody handled himself really well this year, especially given not getting many opportunities to kick in the Cleveland Stadium ahead of the season, obviously signed in late and all of those things. So really optimistic about how he can do going forward. And then guys like Kendall Lamb, Terrence Mitchell are guys that depth players that I would be interested in the right cheap price bringing back. I do not expect them to bring back Larry Ogunjobi. I think that Larry's had a nice 4-year run here, but has never quite reached the level that they hoped for him to reach. I would love to see Larry back, but I just don't envision a role there for him. And then obviously I spoke earlier about Olivier Vernon and the challenges for Olivier with his injury and finding a place to call home at all next year. So, and Carl Joseph too. If Carl was willing to come back cheap, I'd entertain it because I thought he had some really nice flashes this year. Overall, as far as a guy who will come down and really hit you as a safety, not a great coverage guy, but a guy who will come down and hit you as a safety. So we'll see what they think about him.
The other thing is the salary cap may be lowered. You know, the NFL and the Players Association have to come to an agreement. The pandemic will have an effect. It's a matter of do they ladder it in, do they do it all at once? The Browns are still in pretty decent shape either way.
Yeah, they are. They'll be about 20 million under, close to it. They have some guys who they can restructure deals with, convert some money that's owed to them throughout the season, convert it into to bonus money, roll it into the early portion of the year to create some more cap flexibility. And there are some guys who are potential cap casualties in there as well. Maybe Chris Hubbard, who will potentially have a way to save the Browns a little bit of money. There are some names people don't want to necessarily talk about that are interesting in terms of what they're getting paid and what they're able to produce. We will save that conversation for another time. But there are players who are paid a little bit more than maybe what they are equaling to in production. And those are tough decisions that they will have to make. But they're okay shape. They can create even better shape at a couple different positions. So we'll see how they shake. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be the single most I know they only picked 26, and we're not accustomed to seeing the Browns pick that late. But in terms of like having a real team with real pieces coming back and having opportunities to improve it even more, it's going to be the most fascinating Browns offseason we've been able to sit and watch with genuine hope that they're going to be pretty good the next year. Not 2008 hope or 2015 hope coming off decent seasons, but like real tangible good players at prime positions, and the whole entire staff from GM to all the way through the coaching staff all coming back. So it's a really exciting opportunity for these guys to build. So it's going to be a fun offseason.
Last thing I'll ask you before I let you go, how do you put this year's season into perspective? I mean, you know, it stings. I think it might have been a lost opportunity. You know, the Chiefs were there to be had, and they just didn't do it. But boy, it's pretty nice to be talking this time of year with the season just having wrapped up.
You're right. Listen, it's tough because nothing's ever promised in the NFL. We know that. Like the way things shook out, the way they were able to jump out on Pittsburgh early and then control that game, and the way, you know, nobody ever wants to see Pat Mahomes get up and fall down and look just completely out of it. No one wants to see that, but the opportunity then presents itself without Pat that you could win that game. It was a real opportunity. I don't know. They have a tough schedule next year. They have the NFC North. They have Green Bay. They have Minnesota. They have Chicago. They have challenging games on their schedule. We don't exactly know what those teams will look like, because if you try to predict it now, you never know. Too much changes. But the schedule is going to be a little bit more challenging than this year. So I think it's just going to be a fascinating season to see if they grow, see if they mature. I just could not have had more fun, though. Put it this way, as tough as life was for most of us around the world, around the Cleveland area, Cleveland supporters, as challenging as it was here in Ohio, they really provided a fun escape. And it's not often you've been able to say that the Browns provided you a really fun escape. You know, it's certainly been the opposite, right? Where life has been great and jovial, but then you got to watch the Browns on Sunday. It's not that way anymore. It was the Browns were the real escape. Watching these guys win, watching these guys have fun, watching them overcome all these obstacles. It just was a microcosm, I think, of the way Cleveland, the city, views itself, the way the people view themselves, to stack all the odds against us, nature, eerily similar to the 2016 Indians in a way, the way they were able to overcome so many things that just kept falling in front of them. And that was unique. And that's something that I have not experienced since I was a seventh grader in 2002, to watch a team make the playoffs for the Browns. And it's tough to put that in perspective, you know, sitting with my dad watching those games, like an opportunity that you just never know when it'll come back around. And that was a really special season. And I don't think we've said that enough in the last 21 years since the Browns have come back to the NFL. What special memories we were able to all make with them this year. And the hope of what's to come. A quarterback who has certainly put his label as the franchise quarterback in place, and a head coach and a GM and all of it, all of the important pieces, a defensive cornerstone and Miles. It's all there. It's all really there. So as much of a blast as this season was and the memories made, it is an even brighter future. So plenty to feel great about.
Jake Burns, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. You can read him in the Orange and Brown Report. Follow him on Twitter. Jake Burns, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time. Thanks, Jake.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report. That'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Less Levine. We will see you again tomorrow night. The D-Man, Dennis Maniloff, and Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter, scheduled to appear. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.